NFC Wild Card game. Who do you guys got? Seahawks? Rams? Who's going to be the starting quarterback? Find out in the next episode of Sideline Sports Podcast. Welcome to Sideline Sports Podcast. If you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. We welcome you all back into Sideline Sports Podcast. I'm the host, Alex Naveja, where if you're not on the sideline, it's not Sideline Sports Podcast. The source of all of your SoCal sports news. I hope all of you guys had a great New Year's. I hope you guys all had a great time. Hopefully 2021 treats you all better than 2020 did. I know most definitely my guest for today, Megan Garcia, Rams reporter. I know 2021 is going to treat her better. Megan, how are you doing today? Thank you so much for coming on.
I'm doing great, Alex. How are you?
Doing good. It's another day, and you know what? So we're a couple of days away from NFL playoffs, and it's just a couple more weeks away from the Super Bowl. You know, everybody loves the Super Bowl, no matter who makes it in, whether if you really like the football or if you like the halftime shows. It's got a lot of varieties, or even the people that like the commercials too.
It's got a little bit for everyone. And it's incredible that it's been almost a year since the last Super Bowl. It's been the longest year ever, I think.
Absolutely. And last year's Super Bowl, it was a stunner. The 49ers and the Chiefs, the two teams you did want to see in the Super Bowl. Now this year's kind of bringing a lot of who should be going to the Super Bowl this year. A lot of eyebrows raising and just a lot of confusion on who it should be this year. But before we can even talk about it, how about we talk about this matchup this Saturday? Some people say it's another divisional competition, Rams and Seahawks. I think it's going to be a great matchup between these two. But the big question, who do you think will be getting the start for the Rams as the quarterback?
So I actually think Sean McVay is going to throw us a little bit of a curveball. I think it's going to be John Wolford. Jared Goff dislocated his thumb. He had surgery just over a week ago. I think it's going to be John Wolford. He did pretty well against the Arizona Cardinals to the fact that the Rams were able to clinch a playoff berth. I think he's going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and he's going to start him.
I like that decision. And I'll be honest with you, Megan, I was even thinking that same thing, that it was going to be Wolford getting the start there. But, you know, I can't say I did it on myself. I listened to a lot of Rams fans and a lot of Rams fans that do their homework, and I did homework myself. The fact that Jared Goff was actually still throwing before the games in the warm-ups against the Cardinals. So it kind of shows reason to believe that maybe Jared Goff will get the start. And the fact that he is still practicing and taking snaps during practice and still getting those reps in. But there's still a lot of that dilemma of what Goff's decision-making has been in the pocket.
It's been a tough season for Goff. I think this year really exposed just how inconsistent he is. That's been his whole thing, his whole career. And this year, dude, you've been playing for a few seasons already. We're kind of giving you the benefit of the doubt. And this year just really exposed he doesn't have it just yet. And now with this thumb injury, I don't think Sean McVay or the Rams as a whole want to put that in jeopardy with the season. It's do or die. And with the way that Goff plays and with his thumb that was just dislocated a couple weeks ago, I think John Wolford is the answer for the Rams. And it's going to be a tough game. Essentially it's going to come down to Russell Wilson, who's an established QB, to John Wolford, who just made his pro debut a week ago. And it's going to be a tough decision. What do you do? But I think John Wolford looked calm, looked steady against the Cardinals, and I think that's going to carry them into this Saturday's game.
Absolutely. And the fact that John Wolford is somewhat of a different quarterback than Jared Goff. It was Wolford who was a lot more of a mobile quarterback. It wasn't one of those pocket quarterbacks that stays, kind of sits and just and reads and throws to someone, or even just hands it off over to the running back. He was actually running out of the pocket, getting some rushing yards himself, making things happen. Whether if he had no pass anywhere, he tried to run the ball himself and try to find some sort of yardage instead of coming up empty and having to throw it away. So Sean McVay, if you think about it mentally, he has a pretty good situation right now as far as, do you put experience in the playoffs, or do you put someone that brings something different to the table, that's a lot more mobile and will make things happen for each play, not just throw the ball away unless you absolutely have to. But you saw Wolford was actually making things happen in situations like this. Now, the last time these two teams faced off, it was not a pretty picture. It was the Seahawks who had their way 20-9 over at Seattle. And now they're going to go back to Seattle and they're going to play again. And there's no fans, but still, Seattle not exactly a fun place to play at, and going to be a tough one.
Yeah, that game a couple weeks ago was different, and I don't think Rams fans wanted to see it. It was really interesting how the defense played and how the defense showed that it is the number one in the NFL. And it really showed that Goff is very inconsistent as well. The fact that the defense was able to sack Russell Wilson, I believe, 5 times, which is not even a season high for him, that shows a lot about the defense. But the fact is, it comes down to the QB. Who's gonna outplay who? It's gonna be Russell Wilson. It's not gonna be an easy game for the Rams to come out with the W. And 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever that game was, it just showed that the Seahawks are the superior team against the Rams. It's going to be a very hard game. The Rams are still in progress. The fact that they made it to the Super Bowl a couple years ago was kind of a fluke thing. The Rams don't have what it takes to go past this first round. And the Seahawks really are the superior team. But the defense can help bring that down a little. The Rams defense can help bring it into something that maybe the Rams can come out with the W for this game. But the thing is, you have to beat Russell Wilson. How do you do that? It's going to be hard.
Oh, man, Russell Wilson's one of the top of the game. And this is a guy that picks up his game when the playoffs come up. And Russell Wilson is not a guy to take lightly. But I definitely believe this Rams defense, you bringing into this transition to the Rams defense, it wins them ball games. And we've seen it in the past. We've seen the defense win them games. Like last week against the Cardinals, the fact that that pick 6 that was thrown to the Rams defense, and they were able to come in and go into the second half. They were losing. Then they go into halftime. Now with the victory, with one mistake, the defense able to come back with that pick 6 and them coming up with the lead. Now, you have to hope that Michael Brockers is going to come back for the Rams to be able to help out that defensive line. But another good face that's going to be coming up to help out that offense for the Rams is Cooper Kupp. Just got the news that Cooper Kupp, another wide receiver weapon for whether it is Jared Goff or John Wolford, Cooper Kupp going to be coming back and really helping that receiving core. So that's going to be another weapon that the Rams are going to have back.
Yeah, and Cooper Kupp is coming off the COVID-19 list, and there wasn't too much information shared about that. He has tested negative in the last week or so. So that's a good sign. So we're not sure if he had COVID, if he was exposed to someone with COVID. So if, let's say in this scenario that he did have COVID and maybe he was showing symptoms, we're not sure how that's going to play into Saturday's game. If he's going to feel some sort of effects from having COVID, because we do know that COVID-19 is a respiratory disease. So if that's going to affect his running game, that's going to be a bit of an issue for the Rams, but still having Cooper Kupp on the field in plays, it is going to help them some. It's definitely going to help them. And if Jared Goff is the starting QB, definitely going to help out a lot more. Cooper Kupp and Jared Goff, those two have been the duo for the last couple of years. And to a certain extent, Cooper Kupp's been Jared Goff's security blanket. any kind of success that Jared Goff has on the field, it's kind of usually rooted in Cooper Kupp. So definitely the advantage for the Rams heading into Saturday.
Said it just right there, Megan. Now, if we look at the numbers, the last time these two teams played, we look at it with Russell Wilson, 225 yards with 1 touchdown. Didn't throw any picks, so that's a great highlight for him, going 20 for 32 on pass completions. Pretty good percentage there. And then Jared Goff going 24 for 43, 234 yards through 1 pick, 0 touchdown passes there. And he did get sacked 3 times in that game. I'm just going to say it right now, flat out. You produce those numbers in this wild card game, you're not going to win, whether it's Jared Goff or Russell Wilson. Those are unlike numbers for both quarterbacks right there. I'm just going to flat out say it right there. You need to have a 300-plus yard game, whether it's combined yards of running the ball and passing the ball, but you've got to have a 300-plus yards in the game. That's it.
You know what I found really interesting is John Wolford's numbers against Arizona last week are nearly identical to Jared Goff's numbers from that Seattle game a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
So it was very interesting. One was able to clinch a playoff berth, and the other one resulted in a loss, which in hindsight also resulted in the Seattle Seahawks clinching the NFC West. So it's a kind of bit of it comes down to the other opponent, obviously. But the thing is, Jared Goff and John Wolford, I'm going to trust John Wolford in the game a little bit more. He just seemed a little bit calmer than typically with Jared Goff. When you see him play in the pocket, you're kind of just like, okay, you're kind of waiting for the sack. And John Wolford, he was able to run out of it and actually gain some yards, which was pretty good and helped result in a Rams win. So it's going to be an interesting game. Like I said, I don't think the Rams are going to win. It's going to take a lot. And it's just in the Seattle Hawks favor for this one.
You know what? I think we're going to have to bet some tacos on it, Megan, right now. I think it's going to be Jared Goff that's going to get the start. And the reason being is because experience is everything in the postseason. I mean, despite how well Wolford did in his one professional game, I still don't feel like it's enough of his credentials or enough in his resume to allow him to get the start against the Seahawks. I'm going to say Jared Goff, allow him to play. He said that he was going to be okay to play. He's been practicing. I think he gets the green light to start. And I think that's just going to make things a lot more interesting with Jared Goff trying to avenge his loss, especially with these two teams going 1-1 this season. They've got to break the tie. They can't finish at 500 right there, 1-1 throughout the whole entire season. So I think Jared Goff goes with it. And final question, final words, and in your favorite words, who's invited to the Carne Asada?
I'm going to say that John Wolford is going to be invited to the Carne Asada. I think he did a really good job in his pro debut against the Cardinals. I thought it was pretty good. And as you saw the game play out, you saw that Sean McVay gained some trust in him. Now, how is that going to work for the Seattle Hawks wildcard game? Not too sure, especially who's going to start. Sean McVay will not commit to naming a starting QB for this wildcard game. Obviously, Jared Goff has been in practice, taking snaps. Yesterday, Wednesday, Sean McVay said he did a nice job. So that's promising. But also, Jared Goff just has a history of being inconsistent. And by no regards was how they got to the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. I think that was all a fluke, really. That's just really what it came down to. And it showed in the Super Bowl. It was a very low-scoring game. It was actually a really boring game as well. But Jared Goff is very inconsistent. I think John Wolford will be invited to the Carne Asada, regardless if it's a W or an L. But I also think it's going to be a bit of a close game. I think the defense is going to come out and they're going to try to shut down the Seattle offense. It's going to be a very close game. It's going to be a very low-scoring game, the same way that the Arizona game was. I think John Wolford is invited to the Carne Asada, but I think the Seahawks move on with the W.
Wow, he gets invited to the Carne Asada, but results in a crushing defeat right then and there. I don't know if I want to be invited to that Carne Asada, but
it's going to be a little boring. It's going to be a little boring, but the food's going to be good.
Gee, there you go. I like it. I really like it. I think it's gonna be pretty interesting between these two. I think it's gonna be like that game, the final game of the week between the 49ers and that Seahawks game. They were trying to fight out to see who's going to be the NFC West champion, who's going to be the winner of that division. I think it's going to be one of those fun games because of the Rams defense, really trying to keep the Seahawks offense rather quiet. And at the same time, the Seahawks don't have much of a defense there. But we'll definitely see how that game goes. It's going to be on Saturday at 1:30 Pacific time. Make sure to catch that one, and along with all the wild card game actions there, as that's all the time we have left here on Sideline Sports Podcast. We thank you all so much for tuning into this one. If you guys enjoyed this video, please give this episode a thumbs up. Also hit the subscribe button down below. That's why we were able to get a guest like Megan Garcia onto the podcast. And of course, thank you to Megan for coming on, the Rams reporter. Thank you so much, Megan. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Alex, for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And be on the lookout, guys, for the podcast called Who's Invited to the Carne Asada. I'm just putting it out there right now. She's going to come out with a podcast. Don't sleep on her and the moves she's got coming up. I'll make sure to put her social media handles down in the description below so you guys can know who's invited to the Carne Asada. And if you don't know what that means, follow her with more reason to find out what it means to be invited to the Carne Asada. So again, we'll see you around, Megan. Thank you so much.
See you, man. Have a good one.
All right. Take care, everybody. I'm Alex Naveja from Sideline Sports Podcast signing off. Thank you so much for tuning in and enjoy a weekend of wild card action.